Early life and background. Saddam Hussein was born on April 28, 1937, in the village of Al-Awja near Tikrit in northern Iraq. His early life was marked by hardship and instability. Saddam never knew his father, who either died or abandoned the family before he was born. His older brother died of cancer a few months after his father disappeared, and his mother, Sabatulfah al-Musalat, struggled with depression and financial insecurity. She later remarried a man named Ibrahim al-Hassan, whom Saddam reportedly despised due to his abusive treatment. At age 10, Saddam fled to Baghdad to live with his uncle, Khairallah Tulfa, a former army officer and ardent Arab nationalist. Tulfa became a major influence in Saddam's life, introducing him to politics, particularly the ideology of Arab nationalism and anti-imperialism. Saddam attended a nationalistic secondary school and later enrolled at the Baghdad Law School, although he never completed his studies. Rise through the Ba'ath Party. In the 1950s, Saddam joined the Ba'ath Party, a political organization that promoted pan-Arab unity, socialism, and opposition to Western influence in the Middle East. In 1959, he participated in an unsuccessful assassination attempt against Iraqi Prime Minister Abd al-Karim Qasim, who had ousted the monarchy the year before. The attempt failed and Saddam was wounded. He fled to Syria and later to Egypt, where he continued his political activities and studied law at Cairo University. Saddam returned to Iraq after the Ba'ath Party briefly took power in 1963, but the regime was soon overthrown. He was imprisoned for a time by the succeeding government, but escaped in 1967 and became a rising star within the re-emergent Ba'ath Party. By the late 1960s, Saddam was one of the most powerful figures in the party. In 1968, the Ba'ath Party orchestrated a successful coup and seized power in Iraq. Saddam quickly ascended the ranks, becoming vice president under President Ahmed Hassan al-Bakr. In practice, Saddam wielded much of the real power. He reorganized the security services, purged political rivals, and built a formidable police state centered around surveillance and loyalty. Consolidation of power. Saddam officially became president of Iraq in July 1979 after orchestrating the resignation of al-Bakr. Shortly after taking office, he launched a dramatic purge of the Ba'ath Party leadership. At a televised meeting, Saddam read out names of supposed traitors and had them arrested or executed. This brutal show of force sent a clear message: opposition would not be tolerated. Saddam's rule was characterized by absolute control, fear, and a vast cult of personality. He used propaganda to promote himself as a heroic, benevolent leader, the father of the nation. Images of Saddam were ubiquitous, and dissent was crushed with ruthless efficiency. He also undertook modernization projects, investing heavily in infrastructure, education, and healthcare, thanks to Iraq's vast oil wealth. During the late 1970s, Iraq was one of the most developed countries in the Arab world. The Iran-Iraq War, 1980 to 1988. In 1980, Saddam launched a full-scale invasion of neighboring Iran, exploiting the chaos following Iran's Islamic Revolution. He aimed to assert Iraq's dominance in the Persian Gulf and to curb the influence of Iran's revolutionary Shiite regime. The war dragged on for 8 years, becoming one of the longest and most brutal conflicts of the 20th century. Both sides suffered massive casualties, estimated at over 1 million combined, and neither achieved decisive victory. Saddam's regime used chemical weapons against Iranian forces and even against Iraqi Kurdish civilians, most infamously in the 1988 Halabja attack that killed thousands. The war ended in a stalemate, with a ceasefire brokered by the United Nations in 1988. Iraq emerged from the conflict economically strained and deeply indebted, particularly to Gulf Arab states like Kuwait and Saudi Arabia. The invasion of Kuwait in the Gulf War, 1990 to 1991. In August 1990, Saddam invaded Kuwait, accusing it of overproducing oil and thereby harming Iraq's economy, and alleging that it was historically part of Iraq. The invasion was swift, and Iraq soon declared Kuwait its 19th province. The international community, led by the United States, reacted with outrage. The United Nations imposed sanctions on Iraq and authorized the use of force if Saddam did not withdraw. When the deadline passed, a US-led coalition launched Operation Desert Storm in January 1991. The war lasted just over a month, with coalition forces decisively defeating Iraqi troops and liberating Kuwait. Despite his military defeat, Saddam portrayed himself as a defiant Arab leader standing up to Western imperialism. His regime brutally suppressed uprisings by Kurds in the north and Shiites in the south, using overwhelming military force and mass executions. Sanctions and isolation, 1991 to 2003. Following the Gulf War, Iraq faced crippling UN sanctions intended to force compliance with disarmament mandates. The sanctions devastated Iraq's economy and infrastructure, leading to widespread poverty and humanitarian crises. Saddam's regime blamed the West for the suffering, while continuing to divert resources toward military and security forces. During this period, Saddam maintained a tight grip on power through an extensive security apparatus. His sons Uday and Qusay played prominent roles in enforcing loyalty and punishing dissent. Human rights abuses were rampant, and the regime continued to use fear and violence as tools of control. Saddam also engaged in a cat-and-mouse game with UN weapons inspectors tasked with verifying Iraq's disarmament. While Iraq did dismantle much of its weapons of mass destruction, the WMD program in the 1990s, Saddam's regime was often uncooperative and secretive, fueling suspicions that he continued to harbor WMDs. The U.S. invasion and fall of Saddam, 2003. After the 9/11 terrorist attacks in 2001, the U.S. shifted its foreign policy toward preemptive action against perceived threats. Although Iraq was not linked to the attacks, the Bush administration accused Saddam of possessing WMDs and having ties to terrorist groups like al-Qaeda. These claims, later proven false, were used to justify an invasion. In March 2003, the U.S. and coalition forces launched a military invasion of Iraq. Baghdad fell within weeks, and Saddam's regime collapsed. He went into hiding as Iraq descended into chaos and looting. In December 2003, Saddam Hussein was captured by U.S. forces near Tikrit, hiding in a small underground bunker. He was found bearded and disheveled, a far cry from his former image as a powerful dictator. Trial and execution, Saddam was handed over to the Iraqi interim government and put on trial for crimes against humanity, including the 1982 massacre of 148 Shiite villagers in Dujail, following a failed assassination attempt against him. The trial was broadcast around the world and marked a historic moment for Iraq. In 2006, Saddam was found guilty and sentenced to death by hanging. On December 30, 2006, he was executed at an Iraqi military base in Baghdad. His final moments were recorded on video, and his death was met with mixed reactions: relief by many Iraqis, anger by his supporters, and concern over the process by international observers. Legacy and controversy. Saddam Hussein's legacy is deeply polarizing. To some, he was a tyrant responsible for horrific atrocities, including genocide against the Kurds, brutal repression, and the deaths of hundreds of thousands. To others, particularly among certain Arab nationalists, he is remembered as a defiant leader who stood up to Western powers and kept Iraq united. His downfall did not bring the stability many hoped for. Post-Saddam Iraq descended into sectarian violence, insurgency, and eventually civil war. The power vacuum left by his removal contributed to the rise of extremist groups, including ISIS. Today, Saddam remains a symbol of authoritarian rule, but also a cautionary tale about the dangers of unchecked power, international inaction, and the complexities of foreign intervention. Conclusion: Saddam Hussein's life journey, from a poor village boy to one of the most powerful and feared leaders in the Middle East, is both dramatic and tragic. His rise was fueled by ambition, ideology, and ruthless determination. His rule brought modernization to Iraq, but also immense suffering. Ultimately, Saddam's reign ended in violence, his death closing a turbulent chapter in Iraq's history. His story serves as a stark reminder of the potential for power to corrupt, the long shadows cast by dictatorship, and the human cost of tyranny.